Hi everybody, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Debbie Pollock. I live on Lemmy Island in Washington State, and I want to make a video for those of you that are stranded at home. Maybe you have kids you need to entertain, or just something for you to do, something new to learn. And this is a simple mandala dot painted on rock video that I'm going to be presenting for you today. If you like these kind of videos on how to paint dot mandalas on rocks and I paint on canvas, I paint on wood, I paint on glass. If you want to learn these types of techniques, I'm starting with some simple ones for things using tools that you might have around the house. So that you can entertain yourself right now and you don't have to go out and buy new things to risk your life and those of others that work in the stores. But also, if you would like more and more of these videos, I'd be happy to do that. I'd appreciate it if you would like this video by hitting the thumbs up button on the YouTube channel, and also subscribe. The more subscribers I get, the more videos I can make for you. Today I'm going to be doing just a bright colored mandala, kind of free form, not a perfectly round rock, but it is a natural rock from the island on the beaches that I collected. And we're going to be using pencil erasers, so if you have a pencil, that would be great. Toothpicks. I also have these really fun toothpicks that are one-sided pointed and the other side is flat. I'm going to be using those. And crayons. I found a new box of crayons that are round on one side, of course, a large round circle on one side, and a smaller round dot making tool on the other side. I keep Q-tips and a little cup of water not too far from here, so in case I need to clean up a mess. I use a little palette for my paint, but you don't need to. It also works great if you have a paper plate, like a plastic plate or something along those lines. Also, the first color I'm putting into my palette is Snow White. The second one is light yellow. I'm giving them a little shake up because these are not often used paint bottles. These are from my lessons when I used to teach in person and hope to be able to do that again soon. I'm going to use a bright yellow. This is from Craft Smart, called Bright Yellow. When you're using dot painting, it does not require a lot of paint. So you don't need to fill your palette all the way up, just a little coin shape size of each one. This is Jack-o'-lantern. The name is just an orange color. I've decided to go with bright cherry colors to brighten our moods today. This is fire coral. I'm not sure if I'm showing this correctly. Videoing is new to me. Painting is not as new. So I hope you'll get the gist of the lesson, even though my taping skills are lacking. This is Flag Red. It's another apple barrel color. So the brands I'm using are Craft Smart and Apple Barrel today, and also Folk Art acrylic. But you can use any colors you have on hand, make any kind of design you want. This is just going to be a little follow along kind of tool. Oh, I also have a wooden dowel that I thought I'd throw in here in the mix and try. I still have my paintbrush that I use for these videos, the round end, not the talented artist painting side, not with the bristles. So I just want to let you know, this is just a simple mandala design, not super complicated. Do it any way you like. You can follow along with my design, or you can create your own. If you learn anything from this or just have fun, either way, it's good with me, so I hope it's good with you. I'm going to start off with a fairly small center dot. Try to find the center of your rock. Now you can take a small measuring tape, to find your center if you want to, or you can just eyeball it, whatever's comfortable for you. But I'm going to start off with using the end of a crayon. I'm going to dip it in the white, and I've kind of eyeballed it before, so it's around this area somewhere that the center of this rock is. So just go straight down and straight back up, and you should be able to get a fairly centered round dot. The goal, I think, is to try to get your dots as round as possible. They look prettier that way, more symmetrical. But if they're not perfect, this is not a shaming thing. You can make it as close to round as possible. Okay, I'm going to use the sharp end of a toothpick, and I'm going to dip it in the bright yellow, and I'm going to put a small little dot just right next to the white dot. And then I'm going to turn it around so you can see that from both sides. Directly across from that, I'm going to add one more dot there. Whoop, needs a little more paint. Go straight up and down. It's certainly easier for me. And then I'm going to go across. So we're kind of doing a north, south, east, west. If you want to do that, or you can call it a plus sign or a cross or whatever word works best for you. And we're going to make this an 8-pointed mandala today. So I'm going to go in between, kind of eyeballing the center between each one of those other sets of dots. So we're going to have 8 dots around the white dot in the center. And these are the colors that I'm choosing again today. You can choose any colors to make your own design. You can do the same exact design in 8 different colors if you want to, or any amount of colors you want. So there's no rules to it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to use is, I like the size of that white center dot, so I'm going to take the crayon end again, which I wipe off in between. I keep a paper towel close by, and like I said, I keep a little water. I also always keep a Q-tip or a cotton swab to clean up messes that I make. I do make mistakes, everybody does. This is just art, it's not a computer. So I'm going to use the light yellow next, and I'm going to dip the crayon tip into the light yellow, and then just outside between 2 of the other dots that I've already painted, I'm going to put a yellow dot, light yellow dot. That's what color I'm using on this one. So I'm going to line it up kind of in a row, go directly across, and go down and up, and I redot sometimes when I don't think it's perfect enough. There we go, that's a little bit better. And then I'm going to go to the other side, do my north, south, east, west first. For me, that just lines it up. You don't have to do it in this order. Some people go directly around the circle, and sometimes I go directly around the circle. I think when I'm first starting off, this seems to be the easiest thing for me. And then I'm going to go in between each one of these using the same crayon tip, the same color, and try to make them about the same size, same shape as the previous dots along that same row. So this is the beginning of the design. I'm going to wipe that crayon off so I can change colors with it and do it different color next time. Now the next thing I'm going to use is my dowel. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to dip that into the orange. Now the dowel, I noticed last time I used it, it requires a bit more paint. I may have to add more orange into my little palette here. But I'm going to go in between each one of those yellow dots that I have and place an orange dot. Give yourself enough room away from your previous dots so that you don't run into those too much, but you want them snug in there, really close. I'm going to go across the way, and I'm going to add an orange dot. And I have noticed, I don't know if it's the paint or the dowel, but I do need to double dip it and add it twice so that I get better coverage. I'm going to add a little more orange paint into my palette. we go. I'm going to add all of the rest of the dots around the circle. I like to get complete coverage, so that's why I'm dipping it twice. I think it's the paint. It could be the dowel also. Okay, we've got them going across from each other. Now we're going to do the ones in between. And you're just lining it up with the other dots. You don't need a lot of diagrams or stencils. However, if you feel more comfortable drawing lines, you can. On one of my future videos, I will show you how to draw guidelines onto your rocks to make it easier for you to stay in line if you have trouble with this. They don't have to be perfect. Mostly if it's pleasing to your eye, that's all your goal is to just make it something that makes you happy. 9 times out of 10, if it makes you happy, it will make other people happy too. Okay, so I'm wiping off the dowel so I can keep it kind of clean and keep it round and use it again in the future. So now we've got these very tightly clustered circular shape coming on. It looks kind of pretty. I'm just trying to turn the rock so you can see it from different sides. The next color we're going to add is red, and I'm going to use the small end of a crayon again, and we're going to dip it into the red, and I'm going to put a dot in between each one of those previous larger dots. I'm doing this so that you can get the best viewing. I hope my camera angles are okay. Any help you want to give me, advice you want to give me, criticize them even if you need to, on how to videotape better. I am completely open to learning. So I've just begun making these videos. Like I said, my dotting is better than my videotaping, but I hope to learn how to improve that as I go along. So again, you just dip it straight into the paint and then dip it straight onto the rock and then lift up. And that should leave you a nice round little circle. Okay, so those are all matching fairly well. Got a pretty little design going. And the next color we're going to add is, let's see, we haven't used that corally pink color that I have. It's called Fire Coral. I haven't used that yet, so I'll go ahead and add that on right now. And I think what we'll do is go exactly in line with that red dot. I'm going to use the end of an eraser for this. It's going to make it a fairly large dot, but I think it'll turn out kind of pretty here. So let's do that. So dip it straight down into the paint, straight up, and then line it up with your red dot and press it down and back up. We're going to do that all the way around. Don't try to be, I mean, you can try to make it as perfect as possible. I actually like round circles, and I like them to be lined up fairly straight. Admittedly, I do. But if it's not perfect, don't beat yourself up over it. It's just for fun and entertainment and joy. Mandalas are all about peace and joy. The fact that they are fairly in line with each other, that it takes shape, it's circular. These are all things that create peace and calm in your life, and I think we could all use a lot of that right now. So that's the purpose of these videos. I'm hoping to be able to gift back something into the world and help out any way I can. So we've got these great big large size dots, and I think what we're going to do now is add some smaller ones. I'm going to wipe off the tip of my eraser, and then what I want to do is take the end of the crayon, and with the white I'm going to dip it in and just lining up to make almost a straight line from the yellow, the light yellow to the red to the coral. I'm going to put a white dot on the end of that, of each one. Be careful when you're touching the rock. Try not to get your fingers in your previous painted dots that are not dry yet. It happens all the time. I end up with paint all over my hands when I'm working. But it does wash off your hands very easily. It does not wash off your clothes as easily unless you catch it right away. It can dry on your hands and you can get it. But if it dries on your clothing, I would get it right away if you could. I think it'll make everybody happy. I also protect my table surface. Right now I have a mat. It's a silicone mat, but you can use newspaper or an old towel, and then I just place a paper towel on top so I'll have something to wipe my brushes off with that I can toss at the end. I know paper towels are in high demand right now. If you don't have a lot of them, don't use those. Any old white rag or any rag will work. So we're just creating a little bit of a dot on the end of each one of these. And that's number 8. Wiping off my crayon a little bit to keep it clean. Now I'm going to I have the toothpicks that have the little flat end and the pointed end. And I'm going to take the flat end. It's going to make a slightly smaller dot than the dot we just created. And I'm going to put it right between the white and what I use as the coral, right in between. Kind of tuck it right in there on either side of the dots that I have already down. So it creates that kind of a look. And I'm going to do that on all of them. I am dipping my paint into the, I'm dipping my toothpick into the paint on each one. That's up to you. That's the way I like to do it. It makes it for an even flow and even sizes. And I'm doing this on either side of the dot I put on the end. So it's creating a little cluster of 3 dots. I said I was dipping it, and I didn't on that one. I normally dip it each time to make sure that their sizes are the same. Right now I'm getting lazy. I shouldn't do that while I'm teaching, should I? All right, let's go ahead and dip it each time then. Dip. And the second one. It does make them more the same size, and you do want to do that if you're doing it correctly. So each time you dip it, it becomes the same size when you place it. Okay, wipe the tip off of that one. I'm going to use the sharp end of the same toothpick or any toothpick, and I'm going to walk the dots in. Walking the dots is something you can practice ahead of time if you want to, before you start doing it on your rock. But you dip it into the paint one time and you place it down, and then every time you place it after that, it gets a little bit smaller dot because the paint is coming off of the tool you're using. So if I'm using the end of a toothpick, I dip it into the paint, I place the first dot right next to the large dot, and then I walk it towards the middle until it runs out of paint. But what our actual goal is to get it to last all the way to the little red dot that we already have on there. So load up paint on the toothpick, if you can see that. I think you can. And then starting right between the white dot and the coral dot, or those are the colors I'm showing on my video. You can use whatever colors you're using. Walk it into the red dot. It creates a real pretty look. Dot painting is not that difficult to learn. It's a little more difficult to master, but you can immediately have fun and enjoy it. And just as with anything you do, if you keep at it and you do it often and practice, you'll get better and better. And again, this is art. It is not computerized, printed out, done by a machine. We're humans, and the mistakes actually sometimes add to the beauty of it. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. See, it creates just a pretty little chain effect. And the trick of it is just letting the paint flow off the end as it does naturally. So the dots get smaller and smaller. I wipe off the tip of mine once in a while just to keep it fairly even in size. I hope you can see what I'm doing on the video. I just place it down and then go around the circle. I try to get even numbers of dots, but I haven't been counting as I've been talking, so it's not as important to have the exact same number as it is for your eye to see it as even. I think that's more the trick of it. There are many times on my professional rocks that I create to sell and create for gifts that the dots are not exactly even, but it's the eye. The necessary trick of it is to have your eye think it's even. I'll show you some of the other rocks I've done. This is just a little example of one of the rocks that I've done. I hope it's showing up. It's just a very detailed pattern, and then I resined over it, so it's a little bit shiny. This is another one of my rocks. These are not in my Etsy shop yet. I do have an Etsy shop if you ever want to go. I've got about 31 things in there. I do mosaics and dot painting, and it's called Creekside Art Studio for You on Etsy. Creekside Art Studio, the number 4, the letter U, on Etsy. So those are some of my other pieces that I've done. Many, many, many other pieces that I've done. I can't even tell you all of them, show you all of them, but sometime I'll give you a tour of the studio and show you a bit more. Okay, I think we need some more red on here. And what I would like to do is take the, let's see, something in between the, well, I think I'll do, the eraser tip's too big. I think I'm going to use the end of a paintbrush that I have here. And I'm going to dip it in the red. It's not the side with the bristles and the brush, it's this other end, just any stick. You can use a makeup brush, you can use an end of a paintbrush, and I'm going to line it up with the orange dots right there. It's on the same row as the other red dots that I've done, that I did with the crayon tip. I'm going to do that. Again, I normally don't use household items for my professional rocks, for my most of my rocks. I have a huge litany of tools that I use, but I want these videos at this moment in time to reflect and show you things you can do at home without any special purchases. Okay. So those little guys, I'm going to dot around those also like we just did before. So take your toothpick, dip it into your white. No, don't dip it into your white. I'm sorry. Dip it into your light yellow. That'll be a fun color for this. And we're going to put a little dot on the end of each one of those reds. That just helps me line it up so I know I'm starting kind of even place. Some people enjoy dotting away from them to line things up, and then some people like it better when they paint on the side close to them. So there's no right or wrong. You pick the side that you're most comfortable with. It doesn't even have to be one or the other. I do both, so it's just whatever mood I'm in. Okay, so I'm going to take the yellow that we have, and I'm going to go ahead and start with a fresh dip of it and dot around that little red dot that I just created. Just like that. So if you can't see it, that's what it looks like. It's just a light yellow, and I'm putting 1, 2, 3, 4 dots around. However many it works for you and your tool that you're using, that's fine. Don't forget to wipe it off once in a while in between. The wood seems to hold on to the paint a bit, so you might want to do that. So I'm dipping it into in my case, it's a light pale yellow. And it's just giving us a little bit of a detail in the empty space between the dots. Now, depending on the size of the tools you're using, whatever you found around your house, you might not have the same amount of space that I have in mine. The size of your tool will affect the size of your dots, which will in turn affect the size of the space in between the dots. So you find what fits for you. Okay, let's keep going until we've done all of these little dots around the dot we placed on purpose just for this effect. Okay, I think I got them all. I did. Okay, that's coming together nicely. Now what I'd like to do is take the dowel again, and I think I want to use the red again. Maybe the bright yellow. Let's use the bright yellow. And dip it into the yellow. In mine paints, it's bright yellow. You do whatever color you'd like. And I'm going to put it right in between the larger dots with the white ones around them. Again, with the dowel, I have to dip it twice to get full coverage on the dot. So a good way to do that, I press it down all the way, not quite all the way to the rock, but pretty close. And then I add some more paint to my dowel and then lightly touch the top. And that seems to fill in all the voids. This will add a nice little bit of color here. Give it 2 dips since I'm doing it on all of them. Now this is putting quite a bit of paint on these dots, so it's going to take a little while for them to dry. But once these dots do dry, I'm going to show you how to top dot them. I'll show you what I mean by that, if you haven't learned it from a previous video. This is my second video that I've created during the coronavirus time, so that you can play at home with paints and household items. I'm trying to use a few different items each time, so you can also attempt different items in case you don't have the same exact items that I have. This little wooden dowel has been one of my favorites so far, even though it doesn't place the paint quite as well as I'd like. Okay. So that's done, getting very bright and pretty, colorful. And now what I'd like to do is I'd like to dot around those. But what I want to do on this one is a little bit different. We've been dotting in the same color when we do the walking dots all the way around. And I think what I want to do on this one is have the end be a little bit different color. So I think I'm going to take the crayon and use the tip of it and add the red. And I'm going to put it right in line with the large dot I just created. Let me go on this side for you and see if the camera picks this one up better. And just down and up. So we're going to do that on all of them. I got a little bit close. I am going all the way across from myself, so you want it to be next to the larger stone and not touching it so much. I mean, larger dot, but however it works out best for you. Again, there are no mistakes. I mean, nothing that can't be corrected or created into something new. So, I'm wiping off the crayon, and I'm going to again grab a toothpick. Any kind of old toothpick will do. This is a new one I haven't tried yet. And instead of doing red dots all the way around, I think I'm going to do orange dots for the remainder. And we're going to walk the orange dots around. So the way to do that is, see if I can get this so everybody can see it, is just to put it right between the dot you just created, right next to that stone. Add a little more paint and dot it until it gets close to the white or whatever color you used for your previous one. So right next to there, and then dot away. Oops, I need a little more paint on this one. In future videos, I will show you the tools I normally use for dotting, and there's so many options out there, and these are just you can continue. I use toothpicks when I do my professional dotting. I do actually, when I'm going super small, I even use toothpicks. Sometimes it's the smallest thing I can find. Let me redot that a little bit. Sometimes it's the smallest thing I can find. So, but I do have some very small things. I tried actually when I was trying to do super fine dots one time, I tried using a sharp pen, like a safety pin, or and it was just too small of a dot, almost invisible, so I didn't stay with those. So anyway, just keep dotting around your large dot from the one you did until you run out of space. I'm holding it up with my finger from the bottom so I can show you a little bit, and also I can see it because I'm kind of sitting higher than I normally do. I'm getting about 4 or 5 dots on each round. That one got 5, but I could have gone with 4. Two more to do. 2 more dots to circle around, I mean. This is the second to last one on this one. And then one more. Okay. So those are all done. We've got a nice little design happening here. And now we're going to do another row, which we haven't done that yet. We're going to add one more row of walking the dots. So keeping that red one, or whichever color you chose on the very end, we're going to go from that and go again. And this time I would like to use the white. So with a toothpick, I'm going to dip it into the white, and I'm going to go if you can see it, I hope you can, from the dot that I just did and go towards the other stone, so it looks like that, if you can see that. I will eventually get some real video equipment so that I can make these better and you'll be able to see everything better. But we're just kind of double walking the dots. It's almost like creating a little chain effect. I hope you can see. I hope you're enjoying this video. Again, please don't forget to like it by hitting the thumbs up button and subscribe by hitting the little bell. That will let YouTube know that somebody's watching and enjoying and wanting to see more of my content and more of these little tutorials to teach you how to paint rocks while you're at home or wherever you are, actually. You can order the paints online. Definitely you can do that. You can even go, you can use nail polish. You just have to be really careful. Nail polish does not come off easily unless you have nail polish remover. So you want to be really careful protecting your surfaces and your clothing if you're doing something more permanent like that. Although acrylic is fairly permanent once it's dry, so I didn't have enough paint on the toothpick for that one. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more paint to these little dots right here. I noticed I got a little empty there. Okay, so this is the basic design. Normally what I do is I let this dry so that I can put dots on top of dots. So we're going to do some of that, and then while we're using one of these, I'm going to add one more thing. I think I would like this look to be a little bit more pointed today than it is. So I'm going to add some little spokes. So from these white dots there, I'm going to, I'm going to use 3 different sizes of things. I'm going to use the flat end of this toothpick. I'm going to use the end of a crayon, and I'm going to use the end of my paintbrush. I'm going to pick 3 more dots on this, and I'm going to do them in colors that kind of bring your eye out. So I'm going to start with a red, and I'm going to add a dot of red right, I didn't get very much red on there, did I? Right at the end of that. So we're going to go all the way around, adding. It's not depositing very much. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. That's more the size I was looking for. Just one little red dot. So dip it in straight down into your paint as we've been doing all along, and then apply it straight up and down. And I can't see if that came on or not. I need to add a little more to that one. Excuse my thumbs in your way. Okay. I'm not collecting as much paint. I think my paint's drying out. Do be careful not to put so much paint on that you that it dries out before you get to use it. But you can always add more if you have it. And one more. Okay. Add a little bit more to our first one. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add using the crayon tip, I'm going to do the coral color. Add a dot of that. Hope you can see this okay. I've tried to paint from both sides so you can see it. I'm going to start on this side though so I can also see it. So we're just pressing right into it. That gives us a view from both sides. Oops, that one needed more paint. So dip it in and there. And then I think I'm going to add a touch of the light yellow. And for that, I'm just going to use the toothpick. So I just want a small little dot just on the very end. Not that small. So add a little more paint. There we go. That's the size I want. Oh, my hands are getting covered in paint. I always wonder how it happens because I don't see it happening, but it always does. It washes right off with soap and water off your hands. Not a problem. So I'm going to do the rest of these so I can face them myself and I can see what I'm doing. I think I gave you the gist of it. This one's almost underneath the rock. I have to be careful with that little dot and this little dot. What's nice about going right underneath, almost to the underside of the dot, is when you are done painting, you can pick up the dot and it's pretty from all sides, so that's always really nice. Okay, now we're going to do some top dots. I'm going to show you how to do that. What I want to do now is add a different color than what I already have on there. Now sometimes what I do is I just add white to the color I have and it just gives it kind of a light pop. But today, just for ease and simplicity, I'm just going to add a dot of a different color on the larger dots, and I'll show you how that works. I'm going to use the pointed end of the crayon. I didn't use the flat end today of the crayon, but I will for future videos. I don't know if I did. Maybe I did, but if I didn't, I will for future videos if we use crayons again. I'm trying to collect art supplies to make art out of, so that's what I'm hoping you can get the gist of that. Okay, so on this first one, the first one I want to do is these corally colored dots. They look, this one, they look pretty dry to me. So I want to take a coordinating color that would be kind of fun to put on top, or I could do a white on top, which would also be very pretty. I think what I'm going to add on that though is the red. So we're going to do the red dot. I'm going to dip my crayon tip, and then we're going to see how that looks. It shows up slightly, not as well as, the colors are almost too close together. Not as well as I would have liked, but let me make that one bigger. But it adds a little bit of a three-dimensional look to the piece. So I go all the way around. And I add the dot on top. So it just adds a little bit of an interest to it, I think. It makes it a little bit more exciting. I think what I'd like to do now is on top of the orange dots, I want to add the light yellow. So I'm going to take a little bit of the light yellow with the crayon again and go right in the center. If your dots are not dry yet, you can stop the video and come back to it later. Try to get it as close to the center as you can. And try to make them in very close in size. Okay, so it's getting very pleasing to the eye, I think. The next one is the yellow. And we could do the orange on top of the yellow, which I think would be a pretty look. We could do the white on top of the yellow, which would just brighten it a little bit. We could do the coral on top of the yellow. I mean, there's just all kinds of choices. I think I like the look of the orange though. I think that would be beautiful. So let's get a little bit of the orange and go into the yellow stone. So it looks like, the yellow dot, I mean, it looks like that. There you go. I'm getting a little bit of a odd shaped dot because my paint, my yellow paint, is not exactly dry. Normally I like to wait till it is completely dry to do this. I dipped in the wrong color. But for the sake of making the video short and sweet, and I don't know how to edit videos yet, you get everything I do directly from the way it comes out, whether it's right or wrong. Okay, this is a very simple, pretty little design. I think I'm going to add one more thing, and I think I'm going to take the tip of a crayon, and I'm going to add one more white dot, and I'm going to add it to the end. On top of where I put these little secondary row, I think I want to add a white to that. So just right there at the very end, I'm going to add a white dot. I think it brings it all together. Now I have just done one top dot on each of the large dots. You can add top dots on any of the dots you would like. I'm going to have to do these facing me so I can see it. You could go around and add with your toothpick. You can add a top dot on the little yellow ones. In fact, I guess we'll do that. I'll do that with you. Let's go ahead and add one more row of top dots. We're going to take the toothpick, just the small end of the toothpick, and we're going to add white on top of those light yellow dots in the center. So load up your end of your toothpick and put a little dot on each one of those in whatever color you choose. I'm choosing white. It just kind of highlights it. It doesn't clash with it very much. It's not in your face bright difference in color because that was such a pale yellow that I used originally, but it just kind of gives it a little bit of a dimension when you add a top dot. Okay, and I'm going to call this complete. So on a normal rock that I'm doing professionally, I would add a lot more dots. When it's completely dry, maybe the next day, I'll go back in and add resin to it. But I want to try to gently pick this up and show you a little closer version of what the rock looks like and how it looks from the side. I just put my finger in part of it, so that's probably not a good idea. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy painting at home with me. And don't forget to go check out my Etsy shop, Creekside Art Studio for You. That's the letter, the number 4 and the letter U on Etsy. And then this is called Creekside Art Studio for You also, this video site that I'm using. And my studio is called Creekside Art Studio, and I'm on Lummi Island, Washington. Again, this is Debbie saying goodbye, and thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment below on things you suggest, things that I can learn from, and if you have questions, ask them. Feel free to comment, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.